Hello everyone, I am Tacit and I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Char event in which the Chargrimax is added to the game. So this week, of course, don't forget to be keeping up with the current Kingdom Pass. If you have done all of them up to this point, you should be at 29, or if you've done today's dailies, up to 33. If you are any lower than about 25-ish at this current moment in time, then you might need to spend some amount of gems by the end of the week in order to go and actually end up getting all the rewards if you want to end up doing so. All this stuff will be obtainable in the future, so you're mostly just doing it to have it now rather than later down the line, as months from now you will be able to go get all of them in their respective drop table, like this in the Vault Key drop table, this in standard drop table, as well as event keys for Divinion Fields event in the future, and these from the weapons from things like the Soulforge whenever the next Divinion Fields ends up rolling around. So if you do end up not getting some of it, then it's not too big a deal. You can just get it down the line later down the line. However, do be keeping up with it if you do want to end up getting any of the rewards, as you won't need to end up getting it later, as well as all the resources that you get along the way. And of course, all you really have to do for that, the easiest way to do that is just quick kill explore whatever team you want to go and do it with. Either the Atlanta quick kill these days, given that Atlanta got buffed the other week. Rowan quick kill, obviously Dust Devil, various quick kills, and you'll eventually end up finding yourself a Battle Crasher and get your points. You just have to do that 10 times per day, and there it is. And of course, just kill it out. And that's 1 to 10 that you need, and just do that really quick, and it only takes about a few minutes or so, unless you get really unlucky on them. But they have since made it so all of them are uniform, so the last one is no longer absurdly annoying to get compared to every other one. They are all evenly weighted as far as obtaining them. But you have the rest this week, every single day, to go and finish that out. As far as other related events, we have ourselves, of course, Tower of Doom. So at Tower of Doom, the current guild event, you have to go use the purple shield that you get from the shop in order to get double points. This does end up costing 500 gems, so it is definitely worth it, so you don't need to get the shield in the future, as well as all the Dark Forge scrolls that you get along the way, as well as the progresses to be able to go and help your guild. Overall, you basically just want to communicate with your guild where all of the better rooms are, things like the unlocks, fireballs, heroisms. As from guild to guild, it is a different layout, but within your same guild, it is the exact same layout. So every single person in your guild will have the exact same positions, and you simply just want to go do the rooms that are actually worthwhile and skip all the ones that aren't worthwhile, and just keep doing that while having a shield in your team, and you'll end up getting 2 times the amount of points. Beyond that, other various events that we have going on this week. This Tuesday, we have ourselves the faction event for Worm Run, which is that one skull heavy place, red-yellow restriction. Wednesday, we got Bunny here, but that's not the actual pet. The actual pet is the dragon from 2025. This wasn't the holiday pet for, or sorry, 2024. This wasn't the holiday pet for Christmas last year, but it is the one that's here, the gingerbread thingy. It's the one for the legend that ended up coming out. This is already in drop table, so it's not too special, the one that we have this Wednesday. However, do make sure to go and end up picking it up, as if you don't have it maxed, you can end up doing so. But if you already did so a couple months ago from the holiday event, then you shouldn't really need to worry about it. It's only really if you ended up not maxing it during the event. Beyond that, Thursday class event, we have Dragon's Claw, which is a pretty good one. As far as Dragonguard, it is mostly used in pure dragon teams, but has triple damage burning, quite a bit of tankiness. Overall, pretty well rounded as far as covering everything. The only reason you don't tend to use it too often is unless you're using Essentia for 50% mana start, which is a little bit too slow compared to 50% mana start classes that do pretty similar. So you don't tend to use it too often, but in Dragon Restriction weeks, particularly this week, given that it's Dragon Claw week, you do tend to use it a little bit more. And of course, this Friday, we have ourselves Bounty Hunter. And with that, a new bounty troop coming in, and you basically just slot it all the way to the bottom and just run whatever standard team you normally run, either running with 4 bounty troops with the core 3 up front, or running with 2 other bounty troops and running with something like Stellaryx or whatever your best damage source is, in order to clear out Bounty Hunter very quickly. Beyond that, Soulforge is pretty noteworthy this week. As far as troops, I actually forgot what was here. I mostly looked at the weapons. Were the troops any good? I have Argos is interesting. Oh, Pharaoh Kafra. Oh, Soulforge is actually really good this week. So, Pharaoh Kafra, that's actually kind of convenient because I actually showed some teams with him too this week, even though I don't normally always show him. Most noteworthy team for him is this one over here. If we go to it real quick. Actually, let me just do it on the pet battle. I think I already have it set up on pet. Let's do it on this pet real quick. Double check if I don't have enough copies of it. But Stellaryx and a double Pharaoh Kafra, very, very powerful. Whatever your best damage source is in a double Pharaoh. Very, very, very strong, either with Wand, Stellaryx, double Pharaoh, or in this case, Essentia, just so we can immediately go and kill out the enemy with the 50% mana start. But basically, he explodes gems at the start of every single turn, and this does stack, so if you use 2 of them, that's 4, and if you do 3 of them, it is 6. And this is every single turn, assuming he's not stunned. Unfortunately, no immune to stun, but as long as he's not stunned, he will be doing that every single turn. and it does stack with itself, so you could do 4, you could do 6. Obviously never 8, as you're pretty much never want to use him as your main damage source. He can kill things, but it's pretty inconsistent because he has to kill them off a death mark. So he can insta-kill stuff, but it takes a very long time for him to properly insta-kill things compared to an actual proper damage source. But as far as other Soulforge related things, yeah, just go for him. Getting 2 of them, very, very powerful. While Eye of Argus is a pretty fun gimmicky one that can be run for Daemon and Orc, and I guess technically even Groshnak restriction, he creates 2 Doom Skulls at the start of every single turn. It isn't as needed because there's already a troop that you can get pretty much for free that creates 2 skulls, actually from Murmurun, oddly enough, the faction event for tomorrow, that you can get it whenever, the other thing, but it creates 2 skulls per turn rather than 2 Doom Skulls per turn. Of course, the 2 Doom Skulls per turn has the extra benefit of actually mana accumulating for you, since they explode everything around them for half the mana accumulation, whereas the other one just simply creates skulls. However, it's not super high priority to get him. The main thing that he's used for is the various restrictions, more so than necessarily the power that he has. But he can be good, but similar to something like Pharaoh, you generally need at least 2 of them before it's really viable. And if I was to choose between 2 of Eye of Argus or 2 Pharaoh Khafru, it is 100% without a shadow of a doubt getting 2 Pharaoh Khafru is much higher priority. Even if you only get 1, there are still a lot of teams, even some of the teams we show this week, end up incorporating 1 Pharaoh Khafru onto the team. So if you can only get 1, that's still fine, and just get the other one later. But if you can end up getting 2, if you've been saving up a lot of diamonds, might be worth considering. It's pretty much the best way to mana accumulate. The other alternative that's pretty comparable is Takshaka. Takshaka has better ability, but it has a worse overall mana accumulation from its final trait. So if you purely just need mana accumulation, Pharaoh Khafru actually does end up beating it out in overall consistency, as the other one doesn't actually do any value if it doesn't get alignment, whereas this will always get value because it's always exploding. You will always get it regardless of alignment or anything else. You might get even more if you get a bunch of cascades and everything from it, but you'll always get some amount of value from it, whereas there's one slight issue with Takshaka in that it normally gets value, but it doesn't always get value. So the consistency of Pharaoh Khafru when you don't need the ability to be as good, very, very, very strong. Aside from that, there are 2 really noteworthy weapons. Too many things in Soulforge to go craft this week. But the 2 really noteworthy ones are the following. So, of course, we have the Ruby weapon. And with the Ruby weapon, really good true damage weapon, among one of the strongest few weapons in the entire game. However, it was originally money locked, and there are 3 components that you eventually need to get. 1 from Blade of Lands, 1 for Broken Spire, and, of course, 1 from Dragon's Claw. And given that is a Dragon's Claw event week, somewhere in all this mess is that weapon. If I wasn't blind, where is it? Hello, Dragon's Claw weapon, I know you're here. Does it not show when you already have it? I know it's here. I probably passed it like 5 times now. There it is. The Dread Aquabus. So this is one of the 3 components required to get the Ruby weapon, and you should 100% make sure you have it. If there's any one thing you get in Soulforge this week, is actually this, oddly enough. And the main reason for this is it might take forever for this thing to rotate back around, and you need to get 3 separate components. So having one of them already done, even if you don't plan to craft this anytime soon, you want to at least get the 3 components, so when you do want to end up crafting it, you're already going to have them. Otherwise, it could take upwards of a year before you go and rotate all 3 of those components. So do not leave this week if you don't have it without the Dread Arquebus, as you will need it for the eventual Ruby weapon, even if you don't plan to make it immediately. The Ruby weapon itself is the main thing you actually want to craft down the line, which ends up doing a bunch of true damage to all enemies and creates some gold gems, and then explodes 5 gems. Not only is it pretty good true damage, pretty much some of the best you can get, if not the best, off of hero, there are a few other circumstances like life and death and such, but its overall value is the best true damage weapon in the entire game at the moment, as well as having a decent amount of mana accumulation. 5 explodes for 22 mana cost, while not the greatest value, is still not bad. You get surprisingly high amount of mana back for this, depending on how they go, how the cascades go. To some degree, even getting all your mana back, so it can be pretty decent. There are better true damage options out there, most notably things like Tesla and the such. However, as far as hero is concerned, this is a really great option, and under some restrictions where you are allowed to use any hero weapon, or in a restriction where, you know, you kind of have to do this, like Blackhawk or something else. Very, 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 very strong. Beyond that, the other one that you'll probably want to get, and is very useful for a couple events this week, particularly Underspire, is the Doom Spear. The Doom Spear is one of the 6 of the other really good category. These are basically like the pre-nerf journey troops before they got nerfed into the ground. These are as strong as they were if your entire team is yellow. So it deals a bunch of damage to the first 2 enemies and a +2 per temperament level, then creates 2 yellow gems for each yellow ally and enemy. So, if you have your full team as yellow, it does it as strong as a current journey troop. But if your entire team is yellow and the entire enemy team is yellow, it's as good as a pre-nerf journey. And otherwise, it's somewhere in between, which is normally where it's falling. It's normally falling around like a 12, 14-ish gem spawn or so, somewhere around there normally. But normally around 12-ish. But still pretty good. 18 mana cost, a lot of damage pressure, and you basically just keep spamming this with a pure yellow team to keep getting value. And if the enemy has a lot of yellows, ideally 4 of them, but even just any amount, you'll get even more amount of mana accumulation for it. Really good weapon, really good in any kind of yellow restriction like yellow PvP or anything that might be with Guild War that's really yellow heavy. And it's also pretty good since you can easily just make a 4 times yellow team, and even in that context, it will still end up holding down the team as a decent damage source. So it's very niche when it comes out, mostly in really heavy yellow situations, but you can easily at least manipulate your team into that more often than not, and almost every team will have at least 1 or 2 yellows on it, generally speaking. So any of these weapons in this category, very, very, very strong, and definitely ones that you want to get. This one and the ones that have full AoE are the 2 Doom weapons you normally want to be looking out for if you are missing some of the old ones, so definitely make sure to pick that up. But highest priority by far is actually the Dread Agulus, not because the weapon itself is good, but because the final component is among one of the top 5, lower end of top 5 hero weapons in the entire game. So really, really, really good. Actually, I say that. It's really good for Thursday class events. I normally don't show it with it since this was pretty money locked and kind of still annoying to this day to get, as these things have not rotated too many times so far. But this is really good for Thursday class events. This is like the premier Thursday class event weapon. I just try not to show it too much since it was money locked for so long and is still somewhat hard to get, generally speaking, compared to an average weapon like Dawnbringer or like one of the other ones like Dancing Daggers. Which you can easily just get from Hero. Anyways, what are we doing? Other things, Soulforge. Okay, let's go over all the teams. I think it is finally team time, then we'll go over event key drop table and go from there. So, as far as all the teams, let's start from the top. We're going to be starting with Purple Doom, of course. Doom restriction is purple, plus you got to use the shield. So in this case, we're running a pretty standard, just use Thrall Leprechaun with your best damage source, in this case Stellaryx. If you do not have a Stellaryx, just go with your next best option, as far as just your main damage source to go kill everything else with. If you absolutely have to, go for a second damage source as well, replacing out Thrall and going something like your best damage source and some secondary damage source, and use either Leprechaun or a first slot Thrall, replacing out one of these two for a secondary source if you need. Unfortunately, you cannot replace out the shield, as you do need that for the double score, and it kind of just sits there doing nothing. You can use it as a tank if you want, though it will mana block you on any given team. And of course, something that we got as of last week, which the event for is still going on this week, make sure to go finish it, and that is Atlanta. Atlanta got mega ultra deluxe buffed. It got absolutely absurdly buffed. And of course, you get one for free from completing out the Divinion Fields questline, and beyond that, it is pretty overall decently easy to get. It's only an epic, so if you just open a bunch of keys, you will eventually get your second, third ones in order to go put onto a team. And yeah, she got super buffed in pretty much everything. Her ability itself did not get any stronger, but she got a 1 lower mana cost, going from 13 to 12, and she got a lot of trait reworks. The most noteworthy one being a 75% mana start. This makes it so she only needs 3 mana. This is so ridiculously low as far as getting her mana up, and you can just get her up pretty much instantly in game modes like this, where you have access to enchants and... Actually, wait. No, you don't. Not for... Wait. Tower of Doom, you do have access to... why am I forgetting all of a sudden? You do have access to Explode at start, right? You get the Explodey Potion. Yeah, you do. Okay. Why did I think for a second this one didn't? So you actually immediately get her to full mana. Not only does buying tier 1, which is like 30 gems, give you enchant, which brings her to 11 out of 12 mana, aka needing 1 mana, but you then explode 4 gems. And those 4 gems are almost guaranteed going to give you your 3 mana you need into yellow-purple to go get her to max. And I don't mean 3 for one of them, I mean 3 for all 3. Because they're going to be 11 out of 12, meaning all of them will only need 1 singular mana. And this would likely give them 1 singular mana. Meaning that in this context, they actually all 3 basically have pseudo-empower, which is empower AoE, which is decently strong. Like, really, really, really strong. Obviously, this will fall off at the later end at a certain point when 3 casts will no longer, you know, wipe them out. But for their early to mid-range, this is absolutely going to obliterate everything. As you just cast Atlanta, win. And once that starts falling off, maybe you might want to consider throwing like something else to kind of tank or get a bit more mana accumulation. Even a Pharaoh Khafre if you end up farming it this week. But yeah, that's going to be so free. Honestly, it might even be some of the best options to even do at the lower level range, regardless of what you have. Not even just for low rarity, but even just in general. As long as you're still one-shotting with like 2, 3 of her, it's probably worth using until it falls off. There might be some situations where that's not quite the case, like Stellaryx, obviously, if you have Stellaryx, but generally speaking, that is a lot of free damage that you get really quickly. Though the big issue, she does have to give up her turn every single time, so if they have mana drain or some other annoying mechanic, that could kind of get in your way, but otherwise, it's basically triple and powerful AoE damage. That is not bad at all, and even if you do need to cast them more times, she has Yellow Link, so in the context that you have 3, you know, you have +3 yellow, not even counting Banner. So that's going to be pretty quick to go and get them up. And in this case, we're going Archmage's and the Banner. into everything. So we actually, between everything here, we have +3 from the Atlantas into yellow, +3 from the hero into purple, which means we actually have a +5 purple, +4 yellow from this team, which is insanely high. So even if you need to cast more than 3 times, if you have like absolutely nothing else to use and you want to run this all the way, you probably could. You might need like a little bit of a better tank down the line, or even switch your hero class to a tank hero class as Barrier on Brown. But otherwise, that is a lot of mana accumulation. Yeah, not only is it like triple in power, but to get in the backup is not going to take that long at all. And of course, you can run that same team for factions. Anytime you have a yellow or purple distraction, whenever you have a yellow or purple faction, you can end up running her down here as well. In this case, I'm just running pretty standard Guards Avatar team, but you can run the exact same premise. Obviously, trade this out for something actually useful, but you can run double, triple Atlanta anytime that the restriction for Underworld is either yellow or purple. And in this case, it's yellow-red, so you would have access to using her if you so choose. So you could do like wand into triple her, or however you want to end up going down. But anyways, in this case, we're running pretty standard Guards Avatar quick kill team, using Pharaoh Caffrey to go and mana accumulate for it. Of course, Pharaoh Caffrey and Soulforge this week. I think it's actually the same team I showed last week, but actually in the Borkies, I was like, oh, I'll just leave it as is. But it's Hiking Iron Gut quick kill team, using Harpy Mage's mana accumulator, though of course you can use Pharaoh Caffrey if you choose, or anything else that you have. As far as Pure Faction team, it is 1 Terror Worm into 3 Great Worms if you want to play it safe, 2 Terror Worms into 2 Great Worms. But basically the premise of this place is this guy gains a bunch of attack and armor. Anytime you ever have this for a faction event, you kind of just auto-win. He has 50% score reduction, so he gets to be nice and bulky on top of this. And you just keep stacking up his attack and durability and just get him to the point where you can win automatically. And to go and assist with that, he has a bunch of skull creation. You can end up creating a bunch of skulls every single turn. 2 per every single one. Of course, we have the Doom Skull related version of this. However, this is the way cheaper, easy to obtain whenever one. You just throw some Chaos Shards at Worm Run at any point, not just on Tuesday event tomorrow, but literally at any point, and you can go and end up getting a bunch of these guys. And yeah, you have the same mechanic of the guy that's in Soulforge, basically for free, compared to having to spend a bunch of shards and everything, or a bunch of diamonds and everything. But yeah, for every single one, you would end up creating 2 skulls. So if you have 2 of them, that's 4 skulls. Or in the case of this case, when you have 3 of them, you'll end up creating 6. And it gives a lot of skull pressure while having a bunch of durability and a bunch of stats you can end up increasing. As far as the Dragonguard class event, quite a bit of things that you can end up running for this. You do have access to Diamantina, so the upgrade to this team would be Diamantina if you have it. The downgrade to this team would be the one I mentioned earlier of Dancing Daggers. So this is the free class that you get from the Drifting Sands hero class from getting 250 wins on it. Dawnbringer, of course, being crafted in Soulforge, and the upgrade to this team being just run Diamantina and don't even run hero at all, and just run a Diamantina there instead. But this is the mid-range of this team. The basic premise is that you're feeding a bunch of yellow with 2 empowers. One converts brown to yellow dragon gem, the other one converts red to yellow dragon gem, and then you have Essentia to 50% mana start to your entire team. This team, as a Dragonguard, would also be 4 times dragon, which also gives you a little bit of a magic bonus, as well as a bunch of durability, though the magic bonus is the more relevant part of it, as that's the one that will actually end up assisting you. Beyond that, we have ourselves the Underspire. Underspire is specifically a restriction for that of Dragon's Claw. So anything within the Dragon's Claw Kingdom you can use, regardless if it's a dragon or not. Though given that the concentration of the kingdom is almost purely dragon, you will be using almost purely dragon for your team. This is the main instance where you'll be using the Doom Spear this week. You will have a full team of yellow, and the enemy team will have anywhere from 1 to 4 yellow teams, or generally on the team. So you end up getting a lot of value from using the Doom Spear as a mana accumulation option. You'll have at least 1 Empower to go and feed everything your yellow mana that you end up needing, going initially into your Doom Spear to mana accumulate even more yellow that's already on the board, and the rest going into Diamantina being your primary damage source. And once again, using Essentia for your 50% mana start to get everything rolling, as well as having Lightstorm, so you can end up getting even more yellow if that wasn't already enough yellow for everything. As far as the lower level range for Underspire, we're basically doing the same thing as the faction event, except we're doing Dragatar, and I'm also doubling up on it rather than going single, but you could also triple up on the Great Worm if you so choose. It makes it a little bit safer. But the main premise with this is we're using the exact same premise as the other team, except different restriction. We're destroying a column, gaining a bit more mana accumulation, but we're still gaining a bunch of attack and armor just like the other team. A little bit less durable, but he gets a little bit more overall value. He also does it to the entire team, which is why we're using double. So in the case of when your Dragatar dies, the second Dragatar is just as strong as your first Dragatar. And if both of them somehow die, your Great Worms are also just as strong as both the Dragatars that just died. So unlike the other guy that only applies it to himself, he applies it to every dragon on your team, which of course is your entire team. Beyond that, same premise, except you're only creating 4 skulls rather than 6. You'll be getting that every single turn and just skulling them out with your really heightened attack value. And it's pretty much the same premise as the Underspire, except just a little bit better. But of course, the Underspire one has to specifically use the stuff that is restricted to the Pure Faction. whereas you have a little bit more flexibility with what you can run for specifically the Dragon's Claw restriction. Anyways, beyond that, event key drop table. So, of course, we got Dragon's Claw event week drop table this week, which means anything within Dragon's Claw you can end up getting aside from the following. Let's go bring that up just real quick. So if we go to, let's see, base rarity, Dragon's Claw, and then what are we looking for? We're looking for show all. All right, so everything that you see here except the following is in the drop table. So the things that are not in drop table is the Puritan. This is basically a discontinued troop until they figure out what on earth they're doing with Guild War. Guild War should be pretty soon. Who knows? Maybe it's this Tuesday? Probably not. I assume in about like 2 Tuesdays from now, 3 Tuesdays from now, we're probably getting the Guild War patch. However, as it currently stands, this is basically a discontinued troop until they bring back Guild War or some mechanic to go and bring it out. I'm pretty sure new Guild War will have it as a reward to some degree, but as it currently stands, there's actually no way to obtain this troop. Beyond that, other things that are within this kingdom, luckily it's pretty useless, so it doesn't matter. All the troops from Wormrun are, of course, from the Wormrun faction, so go throw Chaos Shards there if you want to go and get any of them. The most noteworthy one, of course, being the Great Worm. Beyond that, other things that are not in drop table include the Draconic Sentinel. Unfortunately, all 6 of those things are only from doing the Underspire at a very, very, very low drop chance, but that is one of them that is locked there. Beyond that, other things that are not in drop table include the Horde Mimic. The Horde Mimic is a very unique one as far as how it drops. It's an extremely rare drop while you're doing Explore. The best way to farm it is just spam Explore 12 to get as many chests as you possibly can. But basically, whenever you get a chest from Explore, there is around a 10% chance or so that is a Mimic, which will give you 2 times the loot. Then there's about another 10% chance that it'll be a 5 times Mimic that will end up giving you, 5 times the loot. And then there's about another like 10-ish% chance that in the end, the loot from that 5 times Horde Mimic will end up being a actual Horde Mimic. So yeah, it's very rare. You got to do a lot of Explore. I've only gotten 2 in the last, 4 or 5 years from all the Explore we've done along that line. Though I did get the first 2 within the first few months, but it was mostly because we were spamming a ton of Explore. I forget the exact amount of hours on average. I want to say about 100, 200 hours of Explore 12 over and over and over again to end up getting one on rate. But of course, you can go way over drop rate. I think right now, assuming it is about a 10% every time you get a 5 times chest, I believe I'm around 5 times over drop rate for my 3rd Horde Mimic. Obviously, 3rd Horde Mimic doesn't matter. You really just need the 1. But yeah, it is a very rare trip. Honestly, I would probably say one of the rarer ones in the entire game, unless you do a ton of Explore, which in the past you used to do a lot, but in the current state, the game is not as valuable as it used to be back in the day. That's still good to do, mostly for the medals, of course, to go get all those. And the other 2 things that are not in the Soulforge or from the drop table include the Bamada. This has not gone on long enough for him to be in drop table yet. And the other one that is not in drop table is the Diamantina, which of course is from the Gem Dragon drop table from Soulforge. It is not available in chests in any way. As far as reasons why you would end up using event keys, I would say you don't need a spam for any mythic. The mythics here are rather underwhelming, or at least the ones that are obtainable in the event key drop table. The main things that you're looking for are more so the legendary utility troops. There's quite a few interesting ones from this kingdom. The most noteworthy ones are Essentia, which while having one of the worst abilities, if not the worst, of any 50% mana start troop in the entire game, it does have among one of the better 50% mana starts as far as what it does, which is for dragons. Of course, this does work on any dragon. This includes Stellaryx, this includes Diamantina, it includes Hero Winch Dragon, any of them. But obviously, it's most notably used with Stellaryx, as Stellaryx is one of the strongest, if not the strongest troop in the entire game, and be able to 50% mana start such a huge mana pool is very, very, very strong. And there are a lot of situations, particularly in quick kill teams, where you end up utilizing it in order to basically boost the strongest troop in the game. So while its ability is abysmal, its 50% that it ends up doing is very, very, very strong. Beyond that, Divinion, really good just overall support troop. Explodes a bunch of mana accumulation, cleanse all allies, gives them a bunch of life. Not used too often, but definitely a great utility troop to have. One thing that's pretty gimmicky that almost never used, the highest spell reduction in the entire game. I don't believe there's any mythics I've gotten 80% yet, but it has 75% spell reduction. Is this that useful? Not really, but it's worth mentioning, I guess, just because it's rather unique. Dragon's Soul also does a bunch of souls, but the main 2 you're looking for is 50% mana start for Essentia, which will help with a lot of things this week as well if you don't already have it, and Divinion, just a great overall support troop that finds its way into teams occasionally. But that's about it. You don't really need to go for any of the mythics. Anything that you'll get along the way, you'll easily get, like in the epics or below, like some of the good empowers here, you would end up getting just in trying for going for those two. So that's pretty much it. Just try getting these two, Essentia and Divinion, with Essentia probably being the most important thing here, particularly if you own Diamantina, and particularly if you own Stellarix, as it is very, very, very strong, and would also help you probably the most out of any one troop this week for a lot of the various events, as a lot of them are pretty Dragon's Claw restricted, particularly under Spire this week. Beyond that, oh yeah, the new troop. So, of course, we did end up getting a new troop as per usual. The new troop, unfortunately, is pretty underwhelming. I wish they would have made it so he converted all of them rather than just the one. You can stock up on red, purple arcanes for 200 each if you end up needing them for anything. But as far as the troop itself, it converts 3 yellow gems into purple dragon gems, boosted by cursed enemies, and then curse and death marks a random enemy. If this did all yellow gems into purple dragon gems, maybe it would be viable. The two biggest issues with this is it does not have Empower, and it does not do all of them. And when you compare this to the 2 empowers that already exist within Dragon's Claw that do it for yellow, I don't really see any reason why you would ever incorporate this guy. He has too high of a mana cost for what he does. He does not have Empower to even get a quick one off initially, and he doesn't even get to convert all of them like the other ones that are from the exact same kingdom that have the exact same mechanic, but do it like 3 times better than them. So I don't really see any situation where you're ever using this, unfortunately. Whereas this did have potential to be a decent like Empower Curse Death Marker, but that's not what they end up making it into, so they basically just made it dead content, at least relative to everything else within the kingdom, which means, yeah, it's pretty much never going to get used. I can't really think of a single restriction where you're going to bother using this over the other 2 empowers that already exist within Dragon's Claw. And yes, they do convert into yellow instead of purple, but it's still going to be way better overall value. The fact that you have Empower, the fact that they do all of them, and stuff like that. So, unfortunately, pretty underwhelming troop. Beyond that, that's pretty much everything. I guess one other thing to kind of slightly mention is don't forget that the PvP season is coming near to an end. This is the second to last week of it, so if you still want to finish out any of the rewards for the paid side, the free side, whatever else you want for it, this is the second to last week to grind out PvP, so if you've been needing to grind out a lot of it to reach whatever goals you might want to end up getting, this is one of your last opportunities too, with the next week being the absolute final week. Whereas, of course, this is the absolute final week to go and get contribution on the Kingdom Pass thing. So if you still want to do that, make sure to do that daily and get all the rewards from that. Anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. All the teams we mentioned will be in the description if you want to go and copy-paste any of them, as well as the pinned comment. And we will be streaming tonight. Normal schedule. The floor is finally done. Everything is back in order. The dog is barking. You've probably heard it some in the background. But yeah, the floor from last week has been completely repaired. All of it went over well. All the hurricane damage has been fixed. Got a nice new floor, and yeah, it's been working over pretty well. Everything back in the house, everything back to normal. Should be back to completely normal schedule, which means tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be messing around with probably the paid weapon. It's a pretty gimmicky weapon. I don't think it's actually going to be good, but we'll mess around with the select a mana gem into a 3x wildcard related weapon, as well as just everything else throughout the week. Tower of Doom, all the normal stuff. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.